Why is it that a man in his 50s with gray at his temples and lines around his eyes can walk into a room and command the attention of a woman half his age, while a 25-year-old with a gym body and a full head of hair gets ignored at the same bar? You've seen it happen. Maybe you've lived it. Maybe you're watching this right now because something about it doesn't add up. The culture keeps telling you that youth wins, that women chase looks, that once you hit a certain age, you fade into the background like old furniture nobody wants to sit on. But reality keeps whispering something different. The Stoics understood this secret 2,000 years ago. Marcus Aurelius ruled the most powerful empire on earth while fighting battles in his 60s. Seneca wrote letters that seduced the minds of emperors and aristocrats deep into his later years. Cato the Younger was feared and desired by the political elite of Rome until the day he died. These men weren't remembered for their faces. They were remembered for something else entirely, something that modern men have forgotten how to build. Today, I'm going to break down the 5 masculine traits that make older men magnetic, irresistible, almost dangerous in the eyes of women who know what quality actually looks like. These aren't tricks. These aren't lines. These are the pillars the ancient Stoics spent their lives forging. And by the end of this video, you're going to understand exactly why a woman's eyes linger on a certain kind of older man, and exactly how to become him. If you're ready to stop playing small, hit that subscribe button. Stay until the end because the 5th trait is the one almost no man ever develops. And it's the one that separates the forgettable from the unforgettable. Let's begin. Trait 1, the gravity of composed silence. Watch a young man in a tense situation. His voice rises, his hands move. He fills the air with words because silence feels like defeat to him. He thinks loudness is power. He thinks reacting is strength. Now watch an older man who has walked through real fire in his life. Someone interrupts him. Someone insults him. Someone tests him. And what does he do? Nothing. He lets the silence sit there like a boulder. He doesn't flinch. He doesn't rush to defend himself. He looks at the person the way a lion looks at a barking dog on the other side of a fence. Amused, unbothered, unmoved. This is what women feel before they can even name it. The Stoics called this apatheia, the state of being untouched by the chaos of lesser minds. Epictetus, born a slave and crippled for life, wrote that no one can truly insult you unless you agree to be insulted. Think about the weight of that. Think about what it means to live as a man who simply does not accept the invitations the world keeps sending him to lose his composure. Young men mistake loudness for dominance. They yell in traffic. They argue with strangers online. They flex their emotions like a peacock flexing its feathers. And women read this instantly as weakness. Because it is weakness. It's the nervous system of a boy who hasn't learned that the world cannot hurt him unless he lets it. An older man who has cultivated real composure walks into any environment and changes the temperature of the room just by being in it. Women notice the way he doesn't chase conversation, the way he doesn't perform, the way his laugh is rare and therefore valuable, the way his eye contact doesn't waver, doesn't hunt, doesn't beg. There's a slowness to him, a deliberateness. Every movement seems to say, I have nowhere to rush to because everywhere I go I am already home in myself. This is intoxicating to a woman. Do you understand why? Because her entire life she has navigated men who wanted something from her, who needed her reaction, who needed her approval, who needed her to soothe their insecurities. And now suddenly she meets a man who needs none of that, a man whose silence is fuller than most men's words. A man whose stillness makes her feel for the first time that she is the one who has to rise to meet him. She feels safe near this man, not the shallow safety of a boring partner, but the deep, primal safety of a creature who knows he is protected by a stronger creature. Her nervous system settles. Her guard lowers. Her curiosity ignites. And here is the secret no one tells young men. You cannot fake this. You cannot script this silence. It has to be real. It has to come from a foundation of having survived things, lost things, buried things, and emerged on the other side with the quiet knowledge that whatever happens next, you will handle it. That's trait 1, The gravity of composed silence, the foundation everything else is built on. The Stoic philosopher Epictetus also taught, it's not what happens to you, but how you react to it that matters. And when you can react to provocation with silence, you are exercising the ultimate form of control. You are not being controlled by your emotions. You are not being manipulated by the words of others. You are standing in your own truth. And that truth is what makes you unforgettable. Trait 2. The authority that doesn't announce itself. There's a strange paradox at the heart of masculine attraction. The men who try hardest to appear powerful are always the least powerful. The men who post their wealth, brag about their conquests, dominate every conversation, wear their status like a costume, all of it repels quality women on a level they can't even articulate. Why? Because real authority never needs an announcement. The king does not tell you he is the king. The king simply walks into the throne room and everyone knows. Seneca wrote about this in his Letters from Exile. He said that the man who is genuinely powerful has no need to prove it, because his power is not granted by the perception of others. It belongs to him, woven into his bones, independent of witness. The Stoics understood that external validation is the drug of weak men, and weak men will burn their entire lives casing it. An older man who has walked the Stoic path carries himself like a man who already knows his own worth. He doesn't interrupt. He doesn't compete for airtime. He doesn't need to correct every mistake and opinion in the room. He's not threatened by other men's success because his own sense of self is not built from comparison. It's built from achievement, from the long, brutal grind of building a life with his bare hands. Women can smell this from across a room. Think about the way older men in films captivate audiences. The character actors who play kings, generals, billionaires, mentors. They don't shout. They don't strut. They sit back in their chairs. They wait to be addressed. When they speak, their voice is low and unhurried because they know the room will pause to hear them. That presence is not a performance. It's the residue of a real inner posture that any man can build, but most men never will. Here's what young men get wrong. They think authority means dominating others. No, authority means being unquestionably dominant over yourself, over your impulses, over your appetites, over your reactions. A man who has conquered himself doesn't need to conquer anyone else, and women pick up on this with eerie accuracy. When a woman meets a man like this, something shifts in her. She stops testing him the way she tests other men. She stops pushing to see where the cracks are because she can feel there are no cracks. She begins instead to lean toward him, to wonder about him, to want to earn the depth of his attention rather than demand it. The younger man with bulging arms and a loud laugh might pull her eye for a moment. But the older man at the end of the bar reading a book, not looking up, not performing, not trying, is the one she finds herself thinking about 3 hours later. Because authority that doesn't announce itself is the loudest authority in the room. Marcus Aurelius wrote, "The soul becomes dyed with the color of its thoughts." When you cultivate thoughts of self-respect and inner worth, your soul reflects that, and she will see it. She will feel it, and she will be drawn to it. Because in a world of men who are performing, a man who is authentic is a rare and precious thing. Trait 3. The depth of a life actually lived. Let's be honest. Young men are interchangeable. Most of them have the same opinions absorbed from the same 5 influencers, the same travel stories from the same 3 destinations, the same ambitions parroted from the same self-help books, the same surface layer of personality, because they haven't lived long enough to develop a deeper one. A woman can have a conversation with a 23-year-old and already know within 15 minutes every interesting thing he has to say. And then she's bored, not because he's stupid, but because he hasn't had time to collect any real weight. Now put that same woman across the table from a man in his late 40s, who has traveled through his own storms, a man who has built businesses, lost them, built them again, a man who has buried parents, raised children, held a crying friend at 2:00 in the morning, a man who has read 1,000 books not to impress anyone, but because he genuinely wanted to understand the world before he died. The texture of that conversation is completely different. There's no script, There's no performance. There's a man drawing from a deep well of actual experience, and every question she asks reveals another chamber she didn't expect. This is what the Stoics meant when they talked about gravitas, the weight of a soul that has been shaped by real time under real pressure. Marcus Aurelius, in his Meditations, reminds himself that most men live on the surface of their lives, skimming along like water bugs. But the philosopher, the real man, dives deep. He examines. He suffers. He reflects. He comes back up changed. A woman of any real caliber craves this depth in a man, not because she's calculating, not because she's chasing status, but because her own soul is hungry for a conversation that goes somewhere, for a partner who can meet her in places other men don't even know exist. Here's what young men cannot manufacture no matter how hard they try. The look in the eye of a man who has been humbled by loss. The quiet smile of a man who has made peace with his mortality. The slow nod of a man who knows exactly what the woman across from him is feeling, because he's felt it himself 100 times, in 100 different rooms. This is why older men, stoic older men, have an unfair advantage. They have content. They have substance. They have stories that don't need embellishment, because the stories are already dramatic enough as they are. And when a woman finds a man like this, she doesn't want one night with him. She wants many nights. She wants to keep peeling back the layers. She wants to know what made him, what broke him, what rebuilt him. His life becomes a book she wants to read slowly, page by page. Depth is a gravitational force. Shallowness is weightlessness. Guess which one holds a woman in orbit? Seneca wrote, "True happiness is to enjoy the present without anxious dependence on the future." When you have depth, you can enjoy the present, because you are not anxiously dependent on what comes next. You have already lived enough to know that the present moment is all you truly have, and that presence is what makes her want to be close to you. Trait 4, the refusal to chase. This might be the most misunderstood trait of all, and it's the one that 90% of men at every age get wrong. Watch how most men behave when they're attracted to a woman. They lean in. They text too much. They try to impress. They agree with everything she says. They reshape themselves like wet clay to fit whatever mold they think she wants. They're so terrified of losing her that they sacrifice the very thing that would make her want them. Their own center, their own frame, their own unshakable self. An older stoic man does not do this. He has seen enough. He has lost enough. He knows deep in his bones that no woman is worth abandoning himself for. Not even the most beautiful one. Not even the one his body is screaming for. The Stoics called this sophrosyne, the mastery of one's own desires, the refusal to let appetite drive the chariot of the soul. When this older man meets a woman who intrigues him, he doesn't chase. He doesn't hunt. He doesn't strategize. He simply lives his life in her presence and lets her decide whether she wants to walk beside him. He's curious about her. He enjoys her, but he never needs her. Do you understand how rare this is? Do you understand the effect this has on a woman who has spent her entire adult life being pursued by men who are willing to humiliate themselves for her attention? She meets this older man, and for the first time she's disoriented. She's the one leaning in. She's the one asking questions. She's the one wondering if she said something wrong when he takes 3 hours to reply to a message. The dynamic is flipped, and she can't remember the last time she felt this kind of curiosity, this kind of hunger, this kind of about a man. This isn't a game. This isn't a technique. This is the natural byproduct of a man whose life is genuinely full, a man who has built his own peace, his own purpose, his own daily rhythms of satisfaction. When your life is truly yours, a woman's arrival does not complete the picture. She is invited into a painting that is already beautiful on its own. Young men chase because they feel incomplete. They think a woman will fix the hollowness inside them. And women feel this need like a bad smell. It repels them. It activates every protective instinct they have. They know correctly that a man who is counting on them for his fulfillment is going to drain them the moment the novelty wears off. The older stoic man carries no such hollowness. He has sat with himself in solitude. He has made friends with his own company. He has built an internal world so rich that no one is needed to rescue him from it, and women can feel this immediately. His non-chase is not coldness. It's not games. It's not indifference. It's the calm, grounded radiance of a man who has nowhere to go because he's already arrived. And women, quality women, will walk across broken glass to reach a man like that. Epictetus taught, "No great thing is created suddenly." And the ability to refuse to chase is not created suddenly. It is built through practice, through the willingness to sit with discomfort, through the refusal to sacrifice your dignity for validation. It is built every time you choose yourself over the approval of others, and as you build that strength it becomes visible, not because you try to show it, but because you cannot hide it. It becomes part of your presence, and that presence is what she will be drawn to. Trait 5, the quiet alliance with mortality. Now we arrive at the trait almost no one talks about, the one that separates ordinary older men from the truly magnetic ones. This is the trait that Marcus Aurelius lived, that Seneca wrote about from his deathbed, that Cato embodied in his final hour. It is the man's relationship with death. I know how that sounds. Stay with me. Every man as he ages comes face to face with his own mortality. He watches friends die. He watches his body change. He sees the horizon of his own end getting closer, no longer a distant rumor. And he has a choice to make in this moment, a choice that defines the rest of his life. He can panic. He can try to cling to youth. He can dye his hair, chase women young enough to be his daughter, buy the sports car, post on social media like he's 25, lie to himself about time. You've seen these men. Everyone has. They are pitiful. They are cringe. And women see through them instantly because the desperation is leaking out of every pore. Or he can do the harder thing, the stoic thing. He can turn and face death directly and make peace with it. Seneca wrote, "Let us prepare our minds as if we had come to the very end of life." Marcus Aurelius reminded himself every single morning that he might not live to see the night. The Stoics practiced memento mori, the daily contemplation of death, not to become morbid but to become free. A man who has truly accepted that his time is limited stops wasting it. He stops fearing rejection. He stops playing small. He stops postponing his real life. Every moment becomes charged with meaning because every moment might be the last. And here's the strange magic of this. A woman can feel this in a man almost immediately. A man who has made peace with his mortality walks through the world with a quiet aliveness that no young man can replicate. He's present, fully present, not distracted, not anxious about the future, not haunted by the past. He sees the woman in front of him as if he might never see her again, because he knows, truly knows, that this might be the last conversation they ever have. His attention is total. His presence is total. Women have never felt anything like it. Most men they've met are half there, checking phones, thinking about work, mentally rehearsing their next line. This older stoic man is fully in the moment with her, and his eyes hold a kind of calm, warm finality that makes her feel like she is the most important thing in the universe for the span of that conversation. And beyond the presence, there's something else, a kind of peace, a kind of gentleness. Men who fear death become cruel, desperate, grasping. Men who have befriended death become softer, wiser, kinder. They have nothing left to prove. They've already faced the only thing worth fearing, and they've walked away from the confrontation unbroken. This man laughs easily because he knows how precious laughter is. He loves deeply because he knows love is finite. He listens carefully because he understands that every word might be the last one he hears from the person speaking. There's a weight of tenderness in him that young men cannot even imagine. And to a woman, this tenderness paired with his iron composure is devastating. It's the combination she's been searching for her whole life without knowing how to describe it. A man who is hard enough to weather any storm and soft enough to truly see her. A man who is grounded enough to be a rock and spacious enough to be a home. This is what the stoic older man becomes once he has made his quiet alliance with mortality. This is why he is not fading into the background of the world. He is in fact entering his most powerful era because nothing is more attractive than a man who has stopped running from the one thing every other man is terrified of. Marcus Aurelius wrote, "You have power over your mind, not outside events. Realize this and you will find strength. When you have made peace with death, you have realized that death is an outside event. You cannot control it, but you can control how you live in the face of it. And when you live with that awareness, you become a man who is truly free, and freedom more than anything is what makes you valuable." So there they are, the 5 traits. The gravity of composed silence, the authority that doesn't announce itself, the depth of a life actually lived, the refusal to chase, and the quiet alliance with mortality. None of these are given to a man by his age. You can be 60 and have none of them. You can be a hollow, desperate, anxious, chasing man at any age, and many are. What makes the older Stoic man irresistible is not the number of years he has lived, but the quality of the soul he has forged inside those years. But here is the good news. Every one of these traits can be built deliberately at any age. The Stoics didn't wait until they were old to begin. Marcus Aurelius was writing meditations in his prime, preparing his mind for the weight of every stage of life to come. Seneca was practicing his death years before it arrived. They understood that the man you are at 60 is simply the sum of the choices you made at 30, 40, 50. Every small act of composure, every refusal to chase, every year spent in depth and reflection is a brick in the foundation of the man who will one day stop women in their tracks without saying a word. If you take one thing from this video, let it be this. The world is trying to convince you that your relevance fades with age. The Stoics knew the opposite was true. Your power compounds. Your presence deepens. Your magnetism is not a fire that burns out, but a slow heat that grows hotter with every passing year if you tend to it correctly. Become the man whose silence is a symphony, whose authority needs no audience, whose life has weight, whose center cannot be moved by any woman or any storm, whose peace with death has freed him to live. The women who matter will find you, not because you chased, but because you became undeniable. Epictetus also taught, "No great thing is created suddenly, and the man you are becoming is no exception. It is created through the accumulation of small choices, each one building on the last. And as you make those choices, you become more grounded, more present, more capable of holding the attention of any woman in the room. And that is what makes you truly unforgettable." If this resonated with you, hit that like button. Subscribe for more Stoic wisdom for modern men. And drop one word in the comments, the trait you're going to start building today. Your transformation begins now. Time is shorter than you think. Use it well.